Chapter 14 of sdm4 is the second of the 4 probability chapter, and it introduces important ideas of probability rules. It really extends this general addition rule, the conditional probability, which is a really important idea, and closes with the idea of Bayes' rule, which is, I think, one of the most important concepts in the course. So the general addition rule is introduced in section 14.1. And this kind of starting to think closely about these Venn diagrams allow us to look at non-mutually exclusive events. So again, this is important to really be making sure you're comfortable with these examples and the notation. There's a step-by-step example of the general addition rule. Again, it's often a little bit confusing the first couple times you work through it, and working back and forth from the words to the actual calculations can often be challenging. 14.2 introduces the idea of conditional probability. What would the probability be if we know something else has already occurred? This idea, introduced with this notation of probability of B given A down here in the yellow, is really defined as a conditional probability, and this is how I actually will talk about it. So the general multiplication rule kind of comes directly from this decomposition that we'll be using very regularly. So you want to really be comfortable with those aspects and to kind of think about how the general probability rule works for all things, not just ones where they're independent. This actually moves us quickly to in section 14.3 to the idea of independence, that if an event A doesn't affect the probability of B, those two events are independent. And it gives some example here on the next page of showing you that. It's important to remember that independence is different from being disjoint. If something's disjoint, it's very dependent. Again, as always, the just checking can be very, very helpful for just assessing your understanding. Lots of different ways of looking at picturing probabilities. The trees, the Venn diagrams, and tables. So these are all going to be different kind of approaches that some people will find more useful than others. For whatever reason, the trees seem to be one of the best ways to be able to understand these Bayes' rule problems that occur. If we look at reversing the conditioning in Bayes' rule, this is definitely a place to kind of stop, work through an example, make sure you feel comfortable, because this is a place where the intuition, our intuition does often fail us. Thinking about different ways and approaches of tackling these reverse conditioning problems is going to be very helpful, and so I would strongly encourage you to go very step-by-step through this step-by-step example. Construct the tree diagram. There's a little bit of historical background on Thomas Bayes. I had a chance to see his tombstone when I was last in England, and again, another example here of reversing the conditioning. Lots of things that can go wrong here. Again, our intuition can often really mislead us to some extension, but really kind of looking now, having had the basis of the key things, these real important parts of conditional probability in the statement of Bayes' rule.